Hi there. Today I would like to take a few minutes to talk to you about the most overlooked aspect of MMI preparation, and one that can seriously impact your overall evaluations. And that most overlooked aspect is your behavior in between stations, in between interview rooms. Before that, hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Klebe, and I'm an admissions expert with BMO Academic Consulting. So, most of the time when we are preparing for an MMI, the focus is on tips for what happens inside the room, being able to present your best self, to make a lasting impression, techniques for handling different questions or question types, making sure that your answers are strong, nuanced, robust. Even some tips on stress, how to deal with it, what to wear, how best to present yourself, and all of that. And when we're doing mock sessions with students, mock MMIs, we can usually see them in between each station. Our camera turns off so they can't see us, but their camera stays on so we can see them. And the reason that we do this is because during the actual MMI, you will also be watched in between stations. What happens in the interview room is of critical importance, absolutely. You'll be dealing with challenging questions, maybe difficult ethical dilemmas, talking about things you might not be entirely comfortable with, whether it's contentious issues or your own personal shortcomings. Tell us about a time you failed. What's your greatest weakness? All these things that we love talking about in high pressure situations. And sometimes when students get questions like that, we see them sigh, maybe roll their eyes, huff, make a disgruntled noise or gesture if they're not happy with their performance. And basically, we can read it all over their face if they're unhappy with their performance. And that response is natural and it's understandable, but we also try to give feedback when we see this happen, because it can be really easy to become myopic. That is to say, to become hyper-focused on the one primary task at hand, which is answering the question. But on the day of the MMI, everything about your appearance, your demeanor, your approach is under scrutiny, including how you act in between stations or even before the stations get started for the day. And you need to make sure that you're demonstrating the same level of professionalism, composure, and maturity inside the room as you are outside the room. So that means when you're in between stations, when you're just having some general interactions with others, maybe making small talk before everything gets started, or even your behavior at break stations. A lot of times in an MMI, about halfway through, there will be a break station where you can just sort of decompress, de-stress a little bit, and all of that is being watched and evaluated. So you need to pay attention to how you're acting, how others might perceive you in that situation. So again, whether this is in between stations or just socializing with others, you need to ensure that you're being pleasant, cordial, and courteous, friendly if that comes naturally to you, but pretty much that you're just being a smiling, mature, appropriate professional, even under an immense amount of pressure. Having the nerves or the jitters, being stressed, that's completely understandable. It's a stressful situation, even if you're massively prepared, even if you have an approach down to tackle any kind of question, you're probably still going to be nervous or stressed. Now, when it's prior to the beginning of the stations, when you're just starting up at the beginning of the day, you can excuse yourself to the washroom if you need to de-stress a little bit, take some deep breaths, run your hands under cold water and dry them thoroughly if you tend to get clammy hands when you're nervous, so you're not giving a sweaty handshake. But you also need to bear this in mind and think about little ways to manage that stress in between stations as well, as you exit one room or exit one station and get ready to enter the next. You don't want to radiate that nervousness or anxiety if possible. You want to try to ensure that everything that happens in the interview room stays in that interview room. You need to try, and it's not easy, but try not to carry the stress with you. If you feel like you didn't perform as effectively as you'd like in that room or at that station, try not to carry that burden on your shoulders, because it will weigh you down. Remember, they're evaluating what happens in between the stations, but even when you get into the next station or to the next room, the interviewer at that next station doesn't know what happened at the previous one. They don't know if you excelled or if you just completely bombed, right? So don't allow something that's over and done, something that can't be changed, sabotage your performance in the next station. If you don't perform as effectively as you want to at a particular station, it's totally normal to feel frustrated, to get upset, but what's done is done, right? You need to start preparing mentally for the next station so that you're fresh and alert and ready to go. You need to reset if you can, so that you can go in, give a pleasant greeting, hello, a handshake if appropriate, and keep making that first best impression at each and every station. Leave the negativity that might have come in the previous station in that station. You can't change it, so for now, at least, don't dwell on it. This is what we call compartmentalizing, right? Having that negative experience and setting it aside. Again, for now. Once you're done and you leave, you're on your way home or meeting up with family and friends to de-stress a little bit afterwards, by all means, at that time, vent. Let it all out, because those are valid feelings and they need to be dealt with. They deserve acknowledgement, resolution. But part of being a mature professional means learning how to compartmentalize those reactions. Acknowledge them, set them aside, but understand that those emotions need to be wrestled with after completing the full circuit of interviews, so that you're not just dragging that frustration or negativity around with you. And I would be the first to admit that all of this is much easier said than done. Absolutely. But at BMO, we can offer de-stressing and compartmentalization techniques in our sessions as part of our overall coaching and mentoring programs. And so in any case, whether you work with us or not, I wanted to get this out there because it's not something that's talked about all that much. Again, the focus tends to be on what happens in the room itself, and the focus tends to be on the questions, and that's completely understandable. But remember, the MMI evaluators want to see how you perform under pressure. But that's not just sort of limited to what happens in each room or at each station. You're being watched outside those rooms as well. So make sure that you don't compromise your overall performance by being very professional in the room and then sort of falling apart in between stations. It would be really, really unfortunate to have something like that reflect negatively on you. And remember, if you're doing an MMI, it's likely that you're trying to get into a very high stress profession. Physicians, lawyers, veterinarians, all of those sorts of jobs carry stress with them. It's inherent, it's part of the job. So you need to demonstrate that you're at least working toward these kinds of de-stressing and compartmentalization techniques. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a professional. They know you're still learning. They know you haven't gotten to that level yet, and that's okay. But you need to be able to demonstrate that you're at least working on such techniques. They don't expect you to be perfect. I want to really reiterate that, because there does tend to be this feeling that you have to be perfect, that it's all or nothing, and it's not. But they do want to see where you're starting out. Right? These things can have much larger implications later on, depending on your chosen profession, right? You don't want to be a surgeon who unfortunately loses a patient and then carries that negativity, that feeling over into their next operation, right? That would be a really significant issue. So showing that early on, you are able to set those feelings aside. Again, acknowledge them as valid, set them aside to deal with them later, but focus on the task at hand. If you can show them that, then you're doing a lot of good for your overall evaluation outside of just whatever score you get on the questions that you answer. So I hope that this video was helpful and that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go ahead and like it, share it with a friend who might benefit from it, and feel free to comment with any questions about it that you might have. Shortly after this live session is over, I'll ensure that the video is accessible for those purposes. And if you'd like us to help you out with your preparation, please click the link that I hope shows up either above or below this video to schedule a free consultation with us, and we'll set you up with one of our admissions experts to answer any questions that you might have and get you started on your own preparations, whether you're preparing for an MMI, another interview format, a Casper test, or even if you're just working on or working towards your application. We have many different programs to suit whatever your needs might be. And of course, we're always happy to work with you to determine which plan is going to support you most effectively. So thank you so very much for your time. Take care, and I'll see you next time.